Okay, it seems that many students are struggling with, well, not struggling, it's very straightforward. I'm gonna show you guys how I mean, so this is the problem that many people have been asking me about. So I kind of replicate the same years, but change the values. So you are gonna get something different, of course. So it's asking you, well, the question says the table shows a cost of a fixed basket of goods that a typical urban consumer would buy in the economy of Kinderberg. The base period for the consumer price index is the year 2000, right? So please specify the answers to two decimal places. So you have to create values for the CPI, right? So that's what I did. I have the same years. I have a little slightly different numbers, but I'm going to replicate this formula. Remember, the consumer price index is the cost of the basket of commodities now divided by the cost of the basket of commodities that is the base year, right? So we chose 2000 to be the base year. So what I'm gonna do is the following. So I'm gonna say this is the current year divided by the base year. So this is gonna be, of course, the same value, right? Then I'm gonna multiply this by 100, right? So I have 100%, right? So I'm gonna do it again. So the formula says this is the CPI. I'm gonna say equal. I'm gonna divide the current. So in this case, the current happens to be 2000 and divided by the base year. So in this case happens to be also 2000. And then I am gonna multiply by 100, right? So in this case, I am creating the CPI. And remember, when you choose a year, that's going to be the 100%, right? So that is the base year. So I'm going to apply the same formula again. I'm going to solve for the second CPI. So the second CPI is the basket of goods today divided by the basket of goods from the base year and then multiplied by 100, right? So I'm going to do it again. So I'm going to do it again. So I said I'm gonna use the cost of the baskets now, which is this one, then divided by the cost of the basket of goods for the base year, divided by, so this is the base year, and then I'm gonna multiply it by 100, right? So I can make these numbers smaller, like less decimals, so you can reduce the number of decimals. And the question is asking you for 2 decimal points, right? So we are going to keep it that way. So the third one is going to be exactly the same. So I'm going to have the basket of commodities today divided by the base year. All information that comes above below 2000 are going to be divided by the base year. So in this case, I'm also going to multiply it by 100. So we have a 66%, right? So we can make some predictions on this. We are not so we can see that inflation is greater here, but then is declining. What happened? Well, just think of COVID. So prices are falling very fast. Probably that's I don't think we're going to see that much in this period, but we can see that prices, the generalized and sustained increase in prices decline from 2011 to 2012, and that can be caused by a recession. So this is very simple. The consumer price index is the index that we're going to be using to compute inflation, right? So that is the first thing. So if I want to compute inflation, well, so we are going to do it later. You can use also another line to compute inflation. And we have the inflation formula a little bit down here. So we are going to be using it, and probably you are going to be able to produce your own formula in Excel, right? Or test the formula in Excel. So then we have another example, I guess is number 6. And I want the question view. I don't want to give you the answers. So we have another case where we have a dozen of eggs, a calculator, and a microwave. So I changed the quantities, I changed the prices. So you can see this is different from what you can see. So, so once again, we want to create the cost of the basket of goods, right? So remember, if I multiply the quantity times the prices, I'm going to get the cost for this year. And we are assuming that we produce exactly the same, but prices are changing here. So as you can see, in 1975 and 1976, we produced the same goods. But in this case, prices in 1975 are lower than the prices in 1976. So that means that inflation occurred, right? So what I'm gonna do here, so let me make some arrangements to this. I'm gonna make a little nice, so remember, those are formulas, right? So you can separate those and you can make sure that every time you change these values, you are gonna get different values here, right? Like for example, what happens if I probably mistyped instead of saying 7 is 17, right? So if I change it, so my whole thing is gonna change. But those are prices that we got from the exercise. So in the second case, we have so use the information in the table to calculate the consumer price and the inflation rate. So based the base year in 1975, the base year is 1975. So we are gonna assume that this is the base year, and then round answers to 2 decimals. So what do we have here? So we have the quantities and we have prices. So if I multiply the quantities times the price of 1975, I'm gonna get the cost of the basket in 1975. If I multiply the quantities times the prices of 1976, I'm gonna get the cost of 1976, and then I'm gonna be able to do the summatory and then find the consumer price index, right? So in this case, look very carefully, I'm gonna say equal. I'm gonna multiply 58 times the prices of 1975, right? I'm gonna press return. I'm gonna do exactly the same, 38 times 30, right? So I am finding the value of the basket of goods for 1975. So the third one, I'm gonna multiply the quantity times my price in 1976, right? So at the end, I'm gonna add all these numbers. So we have in Excel a nice function that says sum, parentheses, click on the first observation, highlight your information, close your parentheses, and that is gonna give you the summatory of all of this, right? So far, we have the cost also. Let me put it in capital letter. So the cost of the basket of commodities in 1975. So I'm gonna find the same for 1976. I'm gonna say equal. Remember, quantities are the same. We're gonna multiply it now for the prices of 1976, right? So once I find the first value, I can do the same one by one. Excel is also very nice because if you position your mouse in the corner and you see this plus sign in black, so we have one in white, we have a little hand. What I want is the one in the plus sign that is solid, right? So I'm gonna drag this down. And what Excel is gonna do is gonna copy the formulas that I asked here. So I ask Excel here, multiply B14 times D14, right? So Excel, if I drag this, it's gonna do, now is multiplying B15 times D15. And as you can see here, we are multiplying B16, which is this, times the D16, right? So I have the values. I have the first value for, this is the cost for 12x, a dozen of x in 1975. This is the cost for 12x in 1976. So this is the previous price of the calculator. Now this is the new price. So that was the old price. Now this is the new price. So I'm gonna do exactly the same. I'm gonna say sum because I want to know the total. So I click and I drag this down. And then I close my parentheses, right? So now I have the prices of the two commodities. So this is the commodities. Let me put this in with those are formulas. This is my data, right? So this is my data. So this is my data. This is my formulas. So now I have the cost of the basket of commodities in 1975 and the cost of the basket of commodities in 1976. Remember, this cost is gonna be the base year, right? So if I want to find the consumer price index for 1975, so the formula says, take the cost of the basket of commodity at time t divided by the basket of commodities in the base year, which happens to be the same, and then multiply it by 100, right? So, so once again, so it says divide the cost of the basket of commodities by the cost of the basket of commodities at the base year. So in this case happens to be the same. We are gonna multiply it by 100, right? So this is 100%, of course. So we can also do the same for this. So remember, for 1976, we're going to divide the cost of the basket of commodities of 1976 by the cost of the basket of goods in the base year, right? Then I'm going to multiply it by 100, right? So we have a rate of inflation that is 126, sorry. So this is the consumer price index for 1975. Once again, we're gonna call this the base year, right? So we're gonna apply the rate of inflation. So the rate of inflation tells me subtract the previous CPI by the new CPI and divided by the previous CPI. So, so in this case, this formula looks very much like the growth rate that we also analyze in this class. So here, I'm gonna follow this formula. So I'm gonna say equal. So in this case, I'm gonna open a parenthesis because I want these numbers to be first subtracted and then divided. So I'm gonna subtract the new CPI minus the old CPI and then divide it by the old CPI, and that's gonna be my rate of inflation. So in this case, we might also multiply this by 100. So I will know the rate of inflation by the number. So, so if I don't put the 100%, of course, I always prefer using decimals. So for me, this is 26%, but some people get little confused. So you have to multiply this by 100, right? Or in this case, let's say that you don't multiply it by 100. You so what you are gonna do is to ask Excel to give you this in percentage points, right? So, and you can add more zeros, right? So, so that can be the case, right? So in this case, you have either, if you need decimal points, you keep your decimal points, and I'm gonna use the regular number. So you use the regular number, and then as the formula says, multiply this by 100. So in this case, you have to do it. In this case, you are rounding up for 2 decimal points, but I don't know if you, yeah, you have to um, pay attention of what they are asking you to do, right? So, so that's the second. We found the cost of the basket of commodity for 1975, the cost for 1976. We got the totals. Then we created the first CPI. So the CPI, which is the base year, is going to be the current year, as we saw here. So the current year divided by the base year, and then multiplied by 100. So in this case, we have the inflation rate. So let me see if they asked you for a percentage. They don't ask you for a percent. Yeah, you have to express these numbers in so you have to multiply this by 100. So let me put this very clear. You multiply this by 100, right? So just imagine that you have the CPI. So you do this and then multiply this by 100, as I did in this formula. So also we had another example. I guess it was number 7. I'm gonna erase the values. So it's asking you also for the same thing. So here you have 2 prices and 2 quantities. So this is price and quantity 1. This is price and quantity 2 for 2 different years. So so what we are gonna do basically is so we can find the CPI for 2013. We also can find the CPI for 2014, right? So very simple thing. We already did it. We multiply price and quantities. We find the sum. We find the sum for the two. We determine which one is the base year. In this case, the base year is going to be 2013. It can be the opposite. The base year can be 2014. So we do exactly the same, right? So, so in this case, very quickly, I'm going to multiply the price times the quantity in 2013. I'm going to do the same, the price of 2013 times, so the times is an asterisk, so the quantity for 2013, and then I am going to sum. So so I'm asking Excel to add these 2 numbers. I can ask for more numbers. So I just have to highlight the information I want to be added. So we have the first cost for the basket of commodities. So we do the same for 2014, 10 times the quantity, also 3 times quantity, right? So, and then we add equal sum, open parentheses, highlight the 2 pieces of data, and then sum, right? So the CPI for 2013, once again, is 100% because we have 2013 is the base year, but happens to be also the cost. So we are going to divide it by the same and then multiply it by 100, right? So the CPI for 2014 is going to be the cost of the basket of goods for 2014 divided by the base year, then multiplied by 100. So the inflation rate, once again, is going to be equal. I'm going to open a parenthesis because I want these 2 numbers to be like CPI X1 and CPI X, so the previous and the current, to be first divided, sorry, to be first subtracted, and then the result is going to be divided. So I'm going to show you what happens when we don't I use parentheses. So I'm going to use 175 divided by, minus 100%, then divided by 100, right? And then multiply it by 100. So in this case, it's kind of confusing because there are many hundreds, but that number can be anything. I will show you an example. So let's see why parentheses are important. So let's say that I don't include parentheses here, right? So why am I asking Excel to do? Well, I am asking Excel, well, first divide this and then subtract from this and then multiply by 100. Probably in this case might not be a big issue because we are dividing, and I mean, it's going to be, so because all of these are hundreds, so probably it cancels out. But just imagine that this is not 100, might be another year, 2012, so we can compute the value for 2012. So that number is going to be different. So in this case, I don't know, probably doesn't make any difference. But in real life, when we are dealing with this, so we are going to, so using parentheses, I'm telling Excel, subtract this and then divide by this and then multiply by 100. If I don't use parentheses, I said, get the result of this, then subtract from this, and then multiply by 100. So that's going to be different. So, so in this case, we have 0.75. So remember, so this is these are my formulas, and this is my data, right? So you can use the same thing. You can do it by yourself. Some people might say, oh, I don't know Excel. Yeah, but that's probably a good moment to learn a little bit of Excel. It's not difficult. It's very easy to use. If you follow the steps I gave you, you very likely are going to find these values without any problem, right? So I hope it helps. I'm going to be posting this video in a few minutes, and then I hope you can watch it. So I will see you on Wednesday. We don't have class on Monday, and I will see you on Wednesday. I will send the invite for Wednesday. Goodbye.